Since the year of 2020, Spirit Halloween has made a tradition of returning a few props every year. Today, I will be discussing some animatronics from their past that should make a return. Whilst there are obvious ones that everybody petitions for, such as Pumpkin Nester, Barnyard Butcher, or even Evil Scientist, I will not be covering those. I will be covering ones that may not be the most requested, and maybe they might have some, although they're not nearly as requested as some of these others. And I'd like to bring light to them, because I think they're really cool, and we should see them again. So, let's begin.
Warning. Stand.
I have nostalgic connections to this prop. I saw him on video around 2015 when I was rather young, and he terrified me. For good reason. Electrified Maniac is a very disturbing prop. He's comparable to that of Death Row, obviously. Same audio, similar concepts, but I find him scarier. You see, Death Row at least makes sense. He's a prisoner that's being executed. And you can say the same for Electrified Maniac, but something about the way he's standing, the bag over his head, it just feels so bizarre. And I mean that in the best way I can describe. Nearly nightmarish. Because, while Electrified Maniac makes sense, this guy almost doesn't. This seems like just a tortured man. And while it's called Electrified Maniac, I think the idea of him being a serial killer victim is much scarier. This prop is nostalgic for many, and I have seen quite a few comments asking for him to return, and I fully endorse this claim. I believe Electrified Maniac must make his return in the following years for Spirit Halloween. Zombie props are always classic. Everybody likes a good zombie, I think we can agree. And from the time of good zombies comes Smolder and Zombie. This guy has been loved by many, and he's definitely not a hated animatronic. With a very unique look and concept, it's safe to say that he was a very cool prop, and very creepy as well. Even though he wasn't obviously gory, his burnt look and stuttering animation made him very eerie. And I think he's definitely a prop that Spirit should really consider bringing back. Especially when you attach the fog to him, he made an awesome effect, looking like he's been set on fire. I think Smolder and Zombie is a prop that doesn't get enough love. He needs a lot more. And he's a prop that I believe they should bring back. Despite my opinions on what makes a good clown prop, Silent and Deadly does not fit that description. He's not particularly funny, although he packs a sense of menace and dread that very few props manage to capture. He's up there with the ranks of Waving Wally, although the year he was released makes him a better return, very nostalgic for some. The way he silently turns back and forth while shushing you, holding his machete, gives that horrifying feeling that you are his next victim, and he doesn't want to get caught with your screams. I think this is a very eerie prop. I think many people can agree with this. And he's one that Spirit might not do, since Talix Artware is now gone, although I think SVI could pick this up. I think Crazy Crate could pick this up. I think nearly any company Spirit has could pick this up. I think Silent and Deadly is a very creepy clown, and I think we need him back. I like to say the rest of the props in this list are underrated. This guy is no exception. You see, Boogeyman isn't hated by many, and that's how most of these go. He isn't hated, but at the same time, he isn't celebrated as one of Spirit's greatest props of all time. That name goes to things like Uncle Charlie and Barnyard Butcher, and while stuff like Barnyard Butcher or Whack-A-Mole can deserve that title for some, Boogeyman is such an original prop. We don't see a lot of Boogeyman, especially not with his look. The burnt, almost mummy-like face, the one eye, the glowing hands, give this guy such a unique sense of menace. and he's such a creepy prop. His audio is even more disturbing, and picturing him towering in the corner of your room is a very nightmarish thing to imagine. Boogeyman is a prop that not many pay attention to, although I think he should make a return. Before we discuss the next and final prop on this list, I'd like to go over 3 honorable mentions. Number 1 is Creepy Rising Doll. Now, as much as I want Creepy Rising Doll to return, and I think she'd be really neat, the only reason she's not on this list is because our prayers might have been answered. You see, in Spirit's most recent teaser, at the beginning, you can hear this laugh, which is certainly none other than the laugh of Creepy Rising Doll. So as much as I do want her to return, maybe our wish has been granted. Limb Ripper has to be one of Spirit's greatest werewolf props they've ever made. In fact, I believe him to be the best. And as much as I would love for this guy to return, the only reason I'm not counting him is because he's already made a Flashback Friday of sorts. And as much as I think they should do that twice, I honestly don't think they will. Although, I'd love to see him again nonetheless. Now finally, we have another underrated one. The Harbinger of Hell. The Harbinger of Hell is of course a nostalgic prop for me, but he's such a cool one. His look of pure red with the horns can be off-putting to some in the bad way, although I think it's really cool. The fact that his robes almost look like they're made of the flames of hell is one of the coolest things ever. And his phrases too, talking about how death is calling for you, how evil is inside of you. He makes for a really all-around badass prop. And I think he's one that a lot of people overlook, but I certainly don't. I don't want him to return nearly as much as some of the others on this list, although I think it needs to happen. Finally, at the number 1 spot, we have Forest Demon. Forest Demon has got quite the uproar for him to return, and I support this 100%. In fact, maybe a little more. You see, when I first saw his videos, I already loved him in 2017. I thought he was one of the coolest of the year. But when I saw him in person, he's genuinely maybe one of the coolest props I've ever seen in person. You see, his towering height is amazing. His animation is startling and could be improved on. Made a little faster, but it's still great. Let's not forget the face. You see, people always think spirit props need blood to be scary. And while some of the other props on this list do have blood or involve death in some way, he does not. Forest Demon is a very passable prop for spirit standards. And you see, despite this, he remains a very menacing figure. His height, deep voice, phrases make him a very off-putting prop. Seeing him in a forest would be one of the most terrifying things ever. And I think he is one of the best props Spirit has ever made. In my opinion, Forest Demon is the number 1 prop, other than the obvious ones, that should return for the future of Spirit Halloween. And with Menacing Molly coming back this year, meaning Crazy Crate stepping back, meaning Crazy Crate is good to make Flashback Fridays, and her being from the same year as Forest Demon, the possibility of him seeing the light of day again is higher than we think.